Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Wednesday, so it's time for our live stream. Let me adjust these cameras a little bit so they're pointing at me. At me. Ah, don't mind me. All right. Hey, my name's Matt Bell. We're here at the Electric Violin Shop in freezing cold Durham, North Carolina. It's like 30 degrees outside. That is unacceptable for this dude from Texas. But hey, I'm glad you guys are here. Thanks so much for coming in. We are going to be talking about two topics today because one was not ambitious. We had a discussion last week when we talked about electric ensembles, and we sort of geared most of that discussion towards schools and teachers. This week, we're going to talk more about professional performance. So that's one topic. And then the other one, we're going to talk about how to make sure you are the one that gets the call, the one where they say, hey, we got a gig for you. That's the kind of phone calls we like getting. So it sort of all comes full circle, right? One announcement I want to make, I've got my little note right here. There is an update if you guys are V-Sound owners, if you own a V-Sound pedal, and if you don't, you should. If you own a V-Sound pedal, there has been an update. They are up to 65 IRs now that you just hook it up and go to their website and download all these IRs. There are 65 IRs now. He's got string bass IRs, cello IRs, viola, and violin. And hey, Michelle, what's going on? We're going to be talking about you. And Raz, we're going to be talking about you too. So he's got some hybrid IRs, and then he's got violin, viola, cello, and bass. So those of you who are doing a lot of pitch shifting, you want to sound like an upright bass, boom, 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 boom. You can sound just like an upright bass on your electric fiddle. How do you like that? Boom. So last week we talked about electric ensembles, and one of the people we talked about was Michelle Jones, and she's here right now. Her group is called Violectric. They are in Orlando, Florida. And they play like 6,000 or 7,000 dates a year. That's approximate. It's an approximate estimate right there. But that's becoming such a popular thing right now, are electric string ensembles. Anywhere from two-piece, like you see the group Fuse out of the UK, all the way up to, I don't know how many. What's your biggest lineup, Michelle? You got 6 or 8 that you might bring out at a given time. I think she's got some fairly long ensembles, depending on what the client wants. But trios and quartets are super, super popular right now. A lot of times they're doing with either a drummer or they're doing with some tracks. Oh, she brings 7. Look at that. It's like that's like Texas, West Texas football team right there, 7 on 7. So maybe they're using a drummer, maybe they're using tracks. I've seen groups with a DJ. In fact, if you know of Black Violin. In fact, this is an awesome segue. I was going to plug their new record. Black Violin just released a new record called Take the Stairs. It's fantastic. Black Violin, I guess, is technically an electric ensemble. Kev plays violin and Will plays viola. And then they got a DJ and a drummer. And those guys are amazing. If you're not fans of Black Violin, you're missing out. So their new album called Take the Stairs, definitely get that. I've been bumping that for about a week or so since it came out, and it's making me very happy. I actually just released a project too. I'm gonna use my platform here to plug myself for a good 15 seconds. I just released my solo EP called One Way to Do It. So that's the end of my commercial. You guys can find that. You know where all the platforms are. Oh, thank you, Raz. That's awesome. So yeah, electric ensembles. There's a lot of clients are asking for this. You talk to Jared Burnett, one of the guys in Orlando who does a ton of booking around. He's getting requests for these electric ensembles all the time. Michelle's got one that's full time that those guys are hitting a couple hundred times a year. There's just a number of them. Saga Strings out of Los Angeles, where Jenny Luke and Rachel Grace and some of those people are doing outstanding work out there. And there are a number of these electric ensembles that, let's not judge, but maybe they're not the greatest players in history, and they're getting a lot of work. So if you can actually play there is a way for you to step in and like swipe some of these gigs from the bands that are out there. Like, hey, let's just get somebody pretty who can hold a violin, sort of, maybe a little bit, and people will think that's amazing. If you can actually play and you can drop a better product than they can, which shouldn't be hard, you could be taking some gigs. I'm just saying the money's out there, and anybody who says, I don't know how to make money playing my instrument, well, there's a way. I won't say it's easy, but it's there, okay? So we're going to talk about some things that you can do. So I asked people like Mel and Raz and all those guys and Jared for some of their thoughts on this about a week ago. We talked last week about how maybe a teacher might put together an electric ensemble for their kids. This week, more on the performance side. So I think the advice that I was getting from these folks, first you want to decide what it is that you want to do, right? Is this going to be like an ad hoc thing? We're just throwing this together and each performance is going to be different? Or do we have a that we do? For ad hoc, maybe there's a different set of advice. I know Joe Denizon puts together a ton of these kind of ad hoc performances for people around New York City. He is definitely a person I would hit up if I wanted some advice in that area, where Joe says, listen, I've got a product for you that I can sell this product. And once he sells the product, then as the date gets closer, he's like, okay, now I need to nail down exactly who our players are. He's got so many players because it's New York City. He's got so many players that he can go, okay, I need Earl, or I need these guys, or we're going to go do that show. And then maybe that organization or that ensemble doesn't really exist in that form again because the client wanted a very specific thing, so they deliver that thing. Whereas Michelle is more, her group is more one of those where they've got a thing that they do, and they deliver that thing a couple of hundred times a year. Now it's obviously each one is different, but hers is, Michelle's deal with the Violectric. They call it fretless rock. They come in and they've got instruments that light up, and there's choreography, and all the technology is all built in. Her husband designed a lot of that technology where the instruments are actually part of the light show, and he controls all that from the board. It's an amazing production if you ever get a chance to see that. So the first line is you got to decide, is this an ad hoc thing or is this a thing? If it's going to be a thing, then we are going to invest a little differently when we're thinking about how we're going to put this thing together, okay? So if it's going to be a tour, if it's going to be a trio or a quartet, you want to decide on a look or a sound. Do we want matching instruments? Do we want matching colors? Do we want everybody to be different? And each of those are totally legit decisions. I know with Michelle's group, they all have light up instruments, and it's a thing that they're associated with. There are some groups where they all have matching instruments. I know David Giardino Strings in the UK, when they show up, they've got matching instruments, and it looks like they're a group that is together and they know what they're doing. And then on the other side, you've got a group like Saga Strings out of LA that are super, super amazing and professional, outstanding players. Each of them has a different instrument. And now that presents some challenges because they've got to get these different instruments to blend. But the plus side of that is there's 4 different sort of sonic flavors on the stage. And it's not like, okay, this person takes a solo, well, that instrument sounds just like the last instrument. So there's pluses and minuses. Maybe we want to have a professional look where everything looks like it's together and everything blends nice. Or we can decide we want some different sounds and looks, and we're going to show we're going to show that we're a group by doing other things. Maybe we're going to dress similarly, or we're going to, obviously, when you hear us play, we've played together before. And maybe you want instruments that each have a different personality. So it's up to you to make that decision. Just sort of decide as you're going through this what you want to do, right? Yeah, there's going to be some great comments here in the comments section. Thank you, Michelle, for dropping that stuff in there. Corporate events with sound crews are going to be some of your better paying events. What they want when you come in, they want it to be streamlined and they want it to be quick and easy. They're not looking for you to come in where everybody's got to sort of patch like 6 or 7 pedals together, and then we got wires running everywhere. And oh, well, should I stand here? Should she stand there? You know, they want you to roll in a rack, and everything's in that rack, and everything's wireless. It's all pre-wired. You got DIs coming out the back. All of your wirelesses, instrument wirelesses, in-ear wirelesses are in that rack. That's one way to do it, where you come in with that rack and everything's, you got one device, and then all the instruments come out. They all transmit in. That's a super professional, super simple way to do it. It's not simple to build this thing, but it makes each gig simple. Okay, that's one way. Another way to do it is if each person has a pedal board, that pedal board is self-contained. Okay, the first violinist has a pedal board. He needs power and an XLR. The violist needs power and an XLR. Cellist needs power and an XLR. And then everything is self-contained. So as long as you guys have your act together with your gear, that's going to make you come off more professional. And it's going to make, when they're talking about you, all these sound crews are talking about you, and the booking people are talking about you later, hey, these guys really had their stuff together, okay? Because they do talk, by the way. Think about your transportation. If you're in Europe and they drive these little teeny tiny cars, you got to think about how are we going to transport this stuff. If you've got a huge 18 space rack with all your stuff in it, maybe that's not the best decision if you're in the UK and the biggest vehicle in the entire country is about the size of my bicep. So maybe you want to be more modular. If that's your thing. Think about how you're going to get stuff from one place to another. Are we going to need to change sounds as part of this? So do I need a pedal board in front of me? Or if I'm Raz and I'm a computer genius, I can figure out how to have Ableton controlling all my sounds. So when I get to the bridge, Ableton fires a command to my pedal board that tells it to change all my sounds for me, and I don't have to be clicking stuff with my feet. Okay, so think about the visual presentation of your show, and make sure that everything is going to be as streamlined as possible. We keep saying streamlined. It's because it's a good word. You want to be streamlined. Monitoring, that's another big thing to think about. If you're going to be doing this in a professional sense, think about the fact that you never know on any given date what kind of venue you're going to be walking into. Okay, a lot of times these venues are across the country. You don't have time to go scout a venue. Here's Jared Burnett. Here's the guy. We're talking about electric ensembles in a professional performance situation. So you want to make sure your gear is pretty flexible. You have no idea what you're going to be walking into on any given night. If you've never played Waya Waya, Washington, but you've been booked to play there, you're not going to get a chance to scout that venue before you go. You just need to be flexible. So you're going to have to think about monitoring. Are you going to be using in-ear monitors? Are you going to be using wedges? The thing about in-ears, they're fantastic, but you're going to feel a little isolated. If you're using wedges, gosh, there's a lot more air moving, which is fantastic, but you don't know what you're walking into. You might be in the corner of a room somewhere where they want you to be kind of quiet. And if you can't hear that wedge, then you're not going to be able to know what's going on, right? So there's pluses and minuses to in-ears and wedges. Sometimes if you're a ground-based gig, it's not a bad idea to have both of those, but if you're flying, maybe you can't do both. So think about monitoring. It's a really important thing, and how that's going to work best with the types of gigs that you're booking. Think about the fact, are you going to need a microphone to interact with the crowd? Are you going to be talking with that crowd at all, or is it just going to be music and nothing else? For arrangements, an arrangement standpoint, if you've got a trio or a quartet or a quintet, what are you going to do for arrangements of these tunes? The deal with ensembles, where I tend to play gigs where I'm the only violinist on the gig, right? So what am I going to play? I'll play whatever pops into my head. But if you're in an ensemble, you got 4 violinists in this ensemble. Y'all can't all be doing that. That's going to sound like tackle football. You're going to need arrangements. So you can write your own arrangements, which is kind of the best way. But if you got a call and we're like, hey, they want us to play this one tune, I really don't feel like taking the time to arrange this one tune that I'm never going to play again. You can buy arrangements to these tunes, and there are plenty of people out there writing arrangements for the types of songs that people are going to request at these events. Joe Denizon out of New York is one of the most fantastic violinists you're ever going to be around. He's also an incredible arranger. Joe Denizon, if you don't follow him, you should be following him. And he's a guy to hit up if you're thinking that you need an arrangement of a certain tune with a certain instrumentation for a show. You know, they're asking for the new Miley Cyrus or something. I don't even know who's on the radio because I don't listen to radio. But, you know, whatever's on the radio, they're like, yeah, we want this new Kesha tune. And you're like, okay, I've never even heard that tune. And you know you're probably never going to play it again. So you don't want to take the time to arrange a thing. Just call Joe Denizon. He's probably got an arrangement of it, or he can tell you who does. And you just buy that arrangement, and then you can learn that, okay? Backing tracks, if you're using backing tracks with your group. A lot of groups record their own backing tracks. If you use in-ears, it's really nice to have a click with that backing track. So you can feed the click to your ears. The click doesn't go out front. And then if you guys all need to land on one, or if you need to come in before the backing track starts, maybe there's a string intro before the backing track starts, the click can cue you. So in your ears, you're dook, 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 and then you all come in, and then the tracks come in later or whatever, okay? That's another advantage to having in-ears, is that you can have that click in there. And in fact, what a lot of click tracks do, they will actually have instructions on the click. So you're hearing dook, 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 and it'll go verse 2, 3, 4, and then the verse hits. So it's telling you in your ears what's going on. If there's a modulation, it'll tell you, okay, D, 2, 3, 4, and then it modulates to D. So that's one of the things that happens a lot on backing tracks with clicks. If you're making your own backing track, that's a really good idea to throw them in there, to throw those notes in there. On your click track, you just voice over on the click track so everybody knows when stuff is coming. Because especially if it's a tune that you don't play real often, and you get on stage and the lights are going and cameras and you're trying to put on a show, sometimes you're like, oh, I forget, is the bridge coming or is this another chorus? The click can just tell you. If you want to do one of these sort of quick and dirty things, you don't want to make your own backing tracks for this particular tune because, you know, we're probably only going to play this a couple times. It's not worth my time to build a backing track for this thing. You can go to karaokeversion.com is a website where you can go in and say, they have like the karaoke tracks for a lot of different songs. And you can go, okay, I don't want a guitar track in there. I don't want a bass track. I do want, you know, you can just tell it which tracks you want in the backing track, and then it will create a custom MP3 for you. I think that costs a couple bucks. But you can go to karaokeversion.com and get some quick and dirty backing tracks for you. They're not, you know, they're not fantastic sounding tracks, but they're going to be better than nothing. And, bueno, ¿cómo está en Perú? Somebody from Peru here on YouTube. Awesome. Bienvenido. So that's a way to do that. Instrumentation. Let's talk about instrumentation in an electric ensemble. When you've got an acoustic ensemble, a lot of times you're going to try to do violin, viola, cello, right? But in an electric ensemble, it's a lot more wide open. As you guys see on the wall behind me, lots of 5-string violins here. It's got the low C on it, so you've got a violin and a viola all in one instrument. If you add an octave pedal to that, then you've got a cello in that instrument too. And that way, maybe y'all can take turns. Maybe everybody has a 5-string violin, and hey, you play the cello part on this song, and I'll play the viola part, and you know, and then on the next song we'll all play something different. Okay? Mira, la cosa mejor es para ir a nuestro sitio de red y puede comprar todo y puede ver todo que tenemos allá y puede comprar, ¿ok? Creo que este es lo más fácil. They're asking to buy a violin from us, and that's why we're here, is to sell violins to people. What octave pedal do I suggest? Gosh, there's so many good ones out there. I like the Pog. I like the Pitchfork. I like the drop pedal. All three of those are good. We carry all three of those. think I did a video review of each of those. And they're all just a little bit different, but they more or less do the same thing. The drop pedal is really cool. If you play in a group that maybe does a lot of different tunings, I've done some stuff with country bands around North Carolina where maybe they tune to E flat. They tune all their guitars down a half a step, and then they throw a capo on the first fret if they're going to play stuff in standard tuning, and they take the capo off if they're going to play in E flat. And you could just play in some crazy keys. You may find yourself playing in A flat, or you may find yourself playing in G flat or whatever. That's fine if that's what you want to do. Or you can carry two fiddles, which I know some people do, and one of them's a half step down, one of them's tuned to standard tuning. Or you can use a drop pedal that just allows you to drop a half a step. So lots of options on there. Back to instrumentation. Yeah, so if you've got 5-string violins or 6-string violins, you've got a lot more options on how you're going to swap parts around in your electric ensemble. And yeah, you can do the whole thing with just three 5-string violins. You can cover violin, viola, and cello if you got an octave pedal. And maybe I'll just take turns, right? No tenemos una tienda en Perú, solo aquí en Estados Unidos, pero podemos enviar a Perú, okay? Espero que le ayuda. Yeah, Rob Janoff, the EHX POG pedal tracks, it tracks really, really well. And actually all those POGs track just fine. Okay, so let's talk about gear. I like gear. NS Design and Yamaha both make full orchestral suites of instrument. They make electric violins, electric viola, electric cello, and electric upright bass. So if you want a full orchestral suite that matches, NS and Yamaha both make a full orchestral suite. Wood Violins makes violins, violas, and cellos. The wood violins, violas are a little bit rare, but they're out there. Of course, there's always a 5-string violin. Yes, I know it's not the same thing as a viola. I know. But functionally, it more or less, it works, okay? Zeta makes violins, violas, and cellos, and those are more standard items for Zeta. If you want a wood violins, viola, that's a special order. But Zeta does make those as a matter of course. In fact, I'm looking at a Zeta cello right now, or a Zeta viola right now. NS and Yamaha, violin, viola, bass, cello. Wood and Zeta both make violin, viola, cello, if you want matching. Aurora and Bridge both make violins and cellos. We don't have any Aurora cellos in stock right now, but if you want to order one, we can get one. So NS, Aurora, Bridge, Zeta, and Wood, they make multiple different instruments. If you'd like to have matching instruments, that's a thing you can do. The other option is you could say, listen, we don't care which violin or cello you use, but we'd like them to be white. And you see I got several white violins behind me on the wall right now. That's a totally legit way to do that, and I've seen groups do that. It's kind of cool because it allows them to sort of explore some different flavors and sounds, okay? But still have like a cohesive look to the group. If you've got a cellist in your group and you want them to be mobile, because face it, that's one of the things that sets electric ensembles apart from acoustic ensembles, tend to be much more high energy. We're moving around a lot. That's the thing that people expect. They don't expect to see 4 people sitting in chairs staring at music stands. With electric ensembles, they're expecting memorized music. They're expecting people to move around, some choreography maybe, or at least, hey, I'm not glued to a chair and I'm not using a music stand. Maybe it would be helpful to have a cellist that is mobile. And yes, that's a thing. Cellists don't just have to sit in chairs. NS Design, Wood Violins, and Zeta, all 3 of those different cellos can be mounted to either a harness or a strap, and with a wireless, allows that cellist to be mobile. They can be running around the stage just like a violinist or a violist can. So those are things to think about, okay? All right, so that sort of, oh yeah, I got some more thoughts here. from some of the experts in this topic. I want to go to Rachel Grace, who's out in LA. One of the pieces of advice that she gave, make sure you know how to get a good sound out of your instrument. And you want to make sure that you know how to get a good mix out of your band. It's not as easy as you think. If you're an acoustic player and you've never played an electric before, don't just assume that you're going to be able to show up on this gig, grab an electric violin for the first time, and make this stuff happen. Okay, it's very, very similar, but it ain't exactly the same. Make sure you know how to work your gear, that you can get a good sound out of your instrument, and make sure that if you guys are doing your own mixing with your amps on stage, or if you're doing your own mixing into a PA, make sure you know what you're doing. Because with acoustic instruments, you can sort of lay in or lay out, and because you're not trusting a speaker that you maybe can't hear, it's a little easier to blend. With electric instruments, especially if we're using in-ears, blending is significantly more difficult. So make sure you know how to do what it is that you're trying to do. Don't just show up and expect it to happen by itself. From Kyle Punitz out of Nashville, another guy who works a lot. Monitoring is so important. Monitoring is probably the #1 cause of rough shows. That we didn't take the time to get our monitors figured out. We have not spent enough time with these monitors, whichever monitors we're using, to be comfortable with them, because in-ear monitors are a very, very different experience than wedges, and they're very, 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 very different from acoustic instruments. It is a whole different, I've been using them for a lot of years, so I forget that the people who try this for the first time, you're kind of freaked out for a little while. Make sure if you're using in-ears the first time you do this ain't on a paid gig where you're just going to expect to be able to hear and everything's going to be great. It's an adjustment process. So make sure you know how to do your monitoring and that you're comfortable with the kind of monitoring that you're using. Also, even with in-ears, assume that you're not going to be able to hear as well as you want to. There's never, I don't think I've ever played in a professional situation on a stage in front of people with a live PA and a crowd hollering at you. I don't think I've ever played in a situation where you can hear as well as you want to. You're always going to wish you could hear better. So understand that you're going to be dealing with issues where, hey, I can't hear as well as I wish I could. And it's pretty common for the audience to be able to hear you a whole lot better than you can hear yourself. Which is a very strange sensation for classically trained people. Y'all are not used to feeling like that. Make sure that you're prepared for that. The other thing Kyle says, if you use in-ears, you increase the number of venues you can play in. Jared could talk on this too a lot. Sometimes in fact, I'll just go to what Jared said. Here's Jared's advice. Know how to read a room and give them what they want. Are you background music or are you a featured performer? And if you're lucky and you work enough, you're going to play situations where both of those things are true, where each of those things are true, for both of those to be true. Or of course, they could be true. They might be background for 20 minutes and then a featured guy for 5 or something or whatever. But and you've got to be able to do the thing that they want. If they want you to be background music, you got to turn the PA down so they can hear themselves talk while you're playing. And then when you become a featured performer, you got to crank that thing up so you got everybody's attention. In-ears allow you to be able to hear yourself in both of those situations. Okay? Jared's advice is also to own a big PA. If you're going to be playing a fair number of gigs where you're going to use a big PA, just go ahead and buy one. Because otherwise you're going to have to rent one each time. You never know what you're going to get. You can send all the riders you want and say, hey, no PV, no garbage. I only allow, Martin Audio speakers or whatever. You can put whatever you want in your contract. They don't read those contracts. The first time you put in your rider, no PV, the very next show you go to, they're going to have a PV PA and they're going to be standing there smiling like, that's what you wanted, right? So your best bet is, because your sound is your product, maybe you just buy a big PA, and then it saves you two things. It saves you inconsistency on what your sound is, and it saves you having to rent a PA. Now, I know the venue usually does that, But when you book the gig, you go, hey, I got my own PA. I know it works great for me. It's going to sound good. Instead of paying some PA company $500 to come, tell you what, you give me $300. You save money and everybody's happy. Right? So a good piece of advice. And from Jesus Florido, another guy in LA who knows these things. He's played some big gigs. If you consider Led Zeppelin to be big, that was a big gig. There's no rule that says that an electric sounds like this. So make it your own. You decide what your instrument and you decide what your group are going to sound like. And then that becomes your thing, right? So don't say, well, I need to sound like this or I need to sound like that. You decide what you're going to sound like. And then that's going to be your brand. That's going to be your thing. Okay? So great advice from great players. This concludes the electric ensembles portion of our live stream. Unless you guys have got some stuff that you want to put in the comments section. And I will try to jump in on there later, or maybe you guys can help each other out. The next thing I wanted to talk about is how to make sure you get the call. Like the call where they say, we want to hire you, that call. Those are the calls we like getting, not the ones that say, hey, remember you owe me money. Oh, there we go. Yeah, industry standard rates for PAs, according to Raz, who would know, run about 10 to 20% of the cost of the item. So if you're going to play more than, 5 or 10 events where you're going to have to rent PA, your best bet is to buy that PA. And then after that 5, 7, 10, after that number event, that money's all going in your pocket. Okay? So that's very goodly. That's good advice. Thank you, Raz. So how do we make sure we get the call? Some of the stuff I'm going to tell you, you're going to think, wow, that's common sense. He wasted his breath on this live stream saying that stuff. Everybody knows that. I'm going to read you 3 warnings that are found on products, okay? On Apple's website, Apple, not the food, the company that you're watching me on an iPhone right now. On their website, it says, warning, do not eat your iPod. It says that. There's a warning on a jet ski that says never use a lit match or an open flame to check the fuel level. There's a warning on a rat poison that says has been found to cause cancer in laboratory rats. You know why those warnings are on there? Because somebody ate their iPod, because somebody used a match to check and see how much fuel there was in their gas tank, and because, I don't know, something about cancer and rat poison. So it may seem like common sense, but it turns out that it's not. And I hit up a bunch of friends of mine who do a lot of hiring, and they gave me a bunch of advice that they would give people, and I'm just going to read some of these to you. And they would tell you that it is surprising to them how many people don't follow this advice. Okay, so if this seems like, oh my goodness, that's common sense, great. You're probably getting phone calls. If you're not getting phone calls, maybe one of these reasons is why. And if you're just getting started, you're like, gosh, I don't know what the etiquette is for these types of things. Maybe there's going to be some good advice for you here. It's always hard to do self-reflection. And what I like to do is if somebody says, hey, you should never X, Y, Z, I'm like, well, I wonder if I do that. So the question to ask yourself is just always assume the possibility exists that you are screwing up somehow, right? So if I assume that possibility exists, which in my case is not just a possibility, if there's a way to screw up, I probably am doing it or have done it. Man, sometimes you just got to be reflective a little bit and go, well, yeah, I guess I am doing that, and that's probably costing me gigs. So yeah, a little self-reflection, just be honest with yourself, kind of be hard on yourself a little bit, but if you're a classically trained violinist, you're kind of used to people slamming you. That's what you pay your teachers for. This is no different. Just take it as that and go, okay, I'm going to do that better, and maybe I'm going to get some more gigs, okay? I'll start this by giving an example of a thing that is a horrible idea to do if you want to keep getting callbacks. And it is a thing that I did a lot when I first started. I was brand new to the amplified world at the time. I was actually working as a trumpet player. And I had come out of school bands. I played in high school, played in college in school bands. Was sort of new to the whole funk and party scene. It was one of the first times I'd ever really gotten any work playing in a rock band. And as I'm trying to like let these people know, like, hey, you know, I'm a legit player. It's going to be worth your while to hire me. I start rolling off my resume every time I get a chance to meet somebody. Hey, you know, I was in such and such honors band, and I've done this and I've done that. You know what? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's really annoying. Nobody wants to hear your resume every time they meet you. It's awful. I've had people call me with stuff like, hey, you know, I need such and such, but before they even get out that they need such and such, it's, hey, I'm this person and I'm a big deal. I've actually had people say that. I'm a pretty big deal. And, you know, I played with this person and that person. I've been on this tour and been on that tour. And I'm like, bro, I don't really care. I just want to know what you need from me. So it's a really annoying. It actually sounds, you make yourself sound like you're not a very big deal when the first thing that's out of your mouth is that you're reading people your resume. Dude, nobody cares. Nobody cares what tour you're on. They don't care. They just want to know if you can do the job that they're talking about right now. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You used to tour with Trisha Yearwood. That's fantastic, but you're screwing up this gig right here. So, yeah, let's talk about that. So that's a big screw up that I used to do. I learned from my mistake. I don't do that anymore. And yeah, hopefully that's working out for me. I'm pretty busy, so I guess it does. I'm going to read some stuff for you. I got some stuff that these people sent me when I asked the questions. From Patrick Contreras, who's a huge deal, coming out of Fresno, California, blowing up right now. Patrick is a guy, I think his record is what'd he tell me, 5 or 7 paying gigs in one day. And I think his record in a week is somewhere around 30. Here's a guy who knows how to find work. Might want to listen to his advice, just saying. Here's his 4 points. Ready? 4, we got down to 4. Play Despacito. Sit back as your calendar fills up, okay? It's a little funny, but not really. And then Jared, Big Jared, who's here, he replied, he said, I have an oath to myself that I will stop playing Despacito the minute nobody films me while I'm playing it. 2.5 years later, I play it every night, okay? And then there was a piece of advice coming from Ariella Zeitman Hoffman, who's in Israel, and she's booked up all the time. And she actually said, be flexible. So many people I know say things like, I won't play ... I think I work most because of that, because people know they can hire me and forget about it. They trust me. They trust I'll come in and do the work and I won't be a burden on them. About 90% of my work is through event planners. Oh, and because I worked really hard on resting friendly face, which I think is the opposite of RBF, and how to look like I'm having the time of my life all the time. And I've gotten to hang out with Ariella. She doesn't look like she's having the time of her life. She is having the time of her life. It's not because she's a great actress. She's really having fun. And sometimes you're stressed out, right? I know things about Ariella. There's times where she's not, like, there's stuff going on in her head and she's like, I really don't want to be here right now. But you know what? You make the decision to be happy. You make the decision to have fun. You kind of make it to make it. And next thing you know, you are having fun, and that is infectious, okay? She has learned how to look good in pictures, which a big part of that is to just have fun and look like you're having fun. I make it my job to give them more than they paid for in terms of energy. Like, I'm not just there to play, I'm there to entertain. Oh, and I have a really cool looking fiddle. Yes, she does. But what people said about the hang, okay, that's next. There'll be some people talking about that. So be enthusiastic about other people's work. Don't be snobby. Be grateful. Be nice to work with. Excellent advice. All right? We're going to go back to Raz. Raz is here. She didn't know I'm going to read this, but I am. Some people have talked about the hang. You know, just be easy to hang out with. Really, seriously. I have a friend who's got a Grammy, and he plays with like everybody. If you've heard of this person, my friend has probably played with this person. And he'll, you know, he's an amazing player, but he said more importantly than that is be a good hang. Just be fun to hang out with. If you're on a tour, you're spending days and weeks and months at a time with these people. At some point, they're going to stop caring about how good you are for the 45 minutes a day you are on stage, and they're going to start caring about the other 23 hours a day they have to hang out with you. Just saying. So Raz said, I'm going to reiterate the hang. But on my end, it's actually clients, agents, and coordinators, since 99% of my work is solo, which it is. Make sure your clients feel taken care of and your coordinators and agents feel secure and hands-off. That sounds a lot like what Ariella said. Working in a live setting is having enough prep done beforehand to fly by the seat of your pants if necessary. Very true. And then hope it's not necessary. But if your client is happy at the end, you did your job. And take notes on how to be better always, but give yourself credit for doing your job. Excellent advice. Patrick Contreras again, you know, the Despacito guy. Yep. On a serious note, if you want to work as a solo violinist, you have to be good. You don't have to be great, just being honest. Find out what works for you, your music, your look, your brand, and what sets you apart from the rest. Remember, if you want to be a commodity violinist, you can get gigs in wedding quartets where you show up and they hand you sheet music and you bury your face in the stand and you play the sheet music and they hand you a check and you go home. That's fine. Totally legit. You want to make a living that way, God bless you, go do it. It isn't for me. There are commodity violinists and there are specialty violinists. Like when Tina Guo, who tours with Hans Zimmer said, I don't want a cellist. I want Tina Guo. So I could give anybody that sheet music and any pro cello player can play that set, right? But if you want Tina Guo, you want the energy that comes with Tina, you want the look that comes with Tina, you want the articulation that comes with Tina, you want the feel, the overall experience of working with Tina, then you go hire Tina. Are there technically better cellists in the world? Yes, Tina would tell you that herself. But they're not getting that gig because she is a package. She is a specialty item, and that is a specialty item that Hans Zimmer wants. And, you know, if there's a more educated or sophisticated consumer out there, I don't know of them. So, yeah, if you want to be a specialty performer making specialty money, you don't want to be a commodity. You need to find a thing that is you. And just find what's authentic to you and then be that, okay? That's from Patrick Contreras. Be creative with your market. Be creative with your booking. Some public gigs don't play great, but they lead to private bookings and can basically be a paid commercial. This is a Christian House thing he talks about too. Bring cards. I repeat, bring cards. He did say to market yourself, right? From my experience, a violinist can be the most working musician of any. This is a guy who's worked as many as 7 gigs in a day. Funerals, weddings, backyard parties, breweries, venues, corporate gigs. That's a rabbit hole of opportunity. Record for others. I can go on and on. Be creative with your booking. The doors might be hard to open at first, but once you bust them open, things get easier. People love violins. They love it. They might not realize how much they love it until they hear you, but they love it. It can be a very profitable instrument to play. Go make some money. We talked about Joe Denizon earlier. Here's a guy that if you want some arrangements for your string group, you should contact Joe D. Joe D's the man. All right, here's my 2 cents. This is Joe Denizon. I play a lot in New York, and I contract string players all the time. If there was an app to design the most hireable violinist on the planet, here's what I would program. This is gold here, by the way. Has their own car. It's a New York thing, but you'd be surprised how many people don't. And then they have the nerve to ask you to reimburse their $400 Uber ride home at 1 a.m. It's not just a New York thing. You got to have transportation, reliable transportation. If you're going to be driving to these gigs, which you are, hey, you ain't going to roll up in a Benz. You ain't got to be Big Jared, who rolls up in this fancy sports car. You ain't got to be that guy. But have something that starts every time you turn the key. It's not cool for you to be calling to gigs going, hey, my car wouldn't start. I mean, it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing maybe. but get yourself something that's going to start. Find some reliable transportation. His number 2 is not an a-hole. We're talking about the hang, okay? Just be easy to be around, okay? Don't think that you're somebody that you're not. You got hired to play this gig. Go there. You don't care if the food is cold. You don't care if they make you sit in, where it's in the corner where there's no lights on. Hey, man, whatever. I'm just, whatever. I'm getting paid. I'm happy. Just be that guy. Don't be the one who's always complaining about stuff. Plays acoustic and electric. Plays viola. Has a regular electric and an LED electric. This is Joe D talking. That's a very highly requested thing in New York. Knows their gear. They own an amp, and they can be self-contained if there's no sound system on a gig. Big deal. You walk in with an electric violin and you don't even have a 1/4-inch cable with you, probably not getting a call back. Has a good, reliable wireless system or two. Knows how to play DJ gigs and work a crowd. Knows a lot of jazz standards and can improv in that idiom. Has classical chops and can read, I won't use his word, can read well and play in orchestras and chamber groups. Okay, some of y'all, like me, I ain't got that. But I don't live in New York. I don't have to. Knows a lot of pop, classic rock, French waltzes, horas, and can pull off endless reams of music out of their rear on cue. Is on time, humble, reliable, easy to work with. Knows how to deal with difficult clients and bridezillas and difficult musicians without losing their mind. No drama, you dig? If you have most of these qualities, you work a lot. If you have all of these qualities, sky's the limit. Who else? All right, so then I've got, did I already read Kyle's? I did not. So that's all great advice. You're hearing a lot of the same things here from people who live on opposite ends of the planet, okay? Kyle's a guy from Nashville. All right, this is going to be a juicy one. Here goes. First things first, if you're trying to get gigs, being a good player is obviously super important. But it's maybe a third of the equation that actually goes into getting people hired in the commercial world. Once you're past the threshold of ability that gets the job done, there are other factors that actually help you land the job and keep the job. One thing I like to call musical literacy. This has nothing to do with actual competency on your instrument. What we're talking about is basic knowledge of theory, harmony, chord progression, scales, as well as the associated terminology that's commonly used in the scene you're trying to get into. Diamonds, if you don't know what a diamond is. Trash can ending. There's a bunch of these things. Head. Some of the common stuff you'll see somebody go like this. That's a bridge. We're going to the bridge, okay? Different types of comping, types of groove, like a swing versus a shuffle or a triplet feel. This varies widely by style as well as region, it's true. What's up, Daniel? Killer video the other day. Thanks for sending that, man. If you're going out for a gig in Nashville and you can't read a Nashville number chart, you might as well turn around and go home, okay? Stage presence is another huge component. A diamond is what a diamond is from a guitar player standpoint. A diamond is at the head of every measure. Bing! You're going to hit that chord and let it ring. So yeah, when we say just play diamonds, basically what I'm telling you is just sort of just give me a little floor, man. Just whole notes. Stage presence, another huge component. What's up, Jonathan? Knowing how to work a stage in a manner that is appropriate for the artist or the band that you're trying out for. If it's a jazz gig, don't twirl your drumsticks around and do scissor kicks. If it's a rock gig, don't stand still and stare at your hands. One thing I would like to draw special attention to is the ability to look confident and composed when you have absolutely no idea what's going on. This is huge because it happens all the time, and pro players can hack their way through just about any tragedy and still look like they're having a blast. This is very true. It's a huge thing on in-ear monitors. In-ears, you know what technology does? Technology betrays you. It promises one thing, and then when you need it the most, it goes, ha ha, no. So when you're about to step out for that big solo and your in-ear battery dies, You don't get to do this and like turn around and go, oh no, what's going on? You just smile. That's right. Rock on. Woo! And throw down. Why do you think I got frets on my violin? Because sometimes technology betrays you. And that's going to be the time you look out and there's 100 cell phone cameras pointing at you and you cannot hear at all. They can all hear you just fine. You cannot hear yourself at all. So you smile and you just trust the instrument to do what it's supposed to do. And you're like, woo, this is awesome. This is the best day of my life. And inside you're dying 1,000 deaths. So back to Kyle. The biggest thing that gets you hired and fired, of course, is the hang. Back to the hang. Everybody says this. It might be important. You have to get along well with a wide variety of crazy artistic types. Be flexible with your schedule and patient with artists being artists. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you're not an enjoyable person to be around in rehearsal or on the road, you're not going to keep the gig. I don't mean being a yes man or sucking up to your boss, just being agreeable and being conscious of having good relationships with your coworkers, bandmates is all it takes. So true. Thank you, Kyle. And then last thing, this should go without saying, but I'm constantly befuddled by how many people don't know this. Show up on time to rehearsals and shows. If they give you money in advance, or if they give you money in advance, taking a run. If they give you music in advance, learn it before you get to the rehearsal. I can't believe people don't do this. And make sure you read the entire email before you start asking the MD stupid questions. Very much. Kyle is an MD on a lot of these gigs, and I'm sure he's gotten a bunch of questions that he goes, it was in the email. It was in the email. I took the time to write it. You didn't read it. Yeah, thank you. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying your wave. Raz, I love this community so much. I spent most of this live stream upside down in my aerials class. Oh my goodness. Yeah, if y'all don't follow Raz, please do. She's amazing and incredible. Darren Andrews is here. Just talked to you the other day. What's up, Darren? You're going to listen to my EP. I hope so, man. Thank you, bro. What's up, Evan? Yeah, so that's a big thing. You got to be good enough, okay? You don't have to be, you know, everybody likes to dog on Lindsey Sterling, okay? But you know what Lindsey Sterling is doing? She's getting paid. Is Lindsey Sterling the best violinist in the world? No, she's probably not the best violinist in the room if she's in an average room. But she's playing her music on her terms, and she is banking, okay? When Evanescence wanted a violinist, they didn't call it Scott Perlman. They called her. She's getting the call. She's getting the gigs. She's getting the royalties. She's getting all that. You know why? Because she's good enough. She's easy to work with. She has a product that people want. Okay? That's a huge, huge thing. Okay? You got to have a product that people want. There's a thing that they associate with you. When they say your name, there's a picture that pops into your head, okay? Any name that I hear, any name from anybody, anytime I hear that name, if it's a person I know or I know of, sort of this vision pops into my head of what that person is and what they stand for. Okay? Can't help it. That's human nature. The question is that vision that I have in my head of that person, how close is that to what they want that vision to be? Okay? When people hear your name and a vision pops into their head, what do I think of when I think of that person? Is that what you want them to think? Well, that's your job, is to make sure that the thing they think when they think of you is the thing that you want them to think when they think of you. And a huge part of that is just being easy to get along with. Just be easy, man. It's easier to say than do. I totally get that. But that's important. You want to be a good enough player. You want to be easy to get along with. You want to be on time. You want to be prepared. You want to be professional. You want to have gear that works. You want to sound good. You want to be a good troubleshooter. Just all these type things. And then you've got to be able to put on a great show. And I don't mean put on a great show when you got 1,000 people screaming your name. Anybody can do that. The hard thing is to put on a great show when you're having technical problems and you can't hear and the peg on your A string just slipped, and nobody has any idea what note that is because it's certainly not one of the 12 that we use. And, you know, you can't hear, and, you know, nothing's working right, and I don't really know this song that well anyway. Now, are you putting on a good show? That's the difference between a pro and an amateur. So that's the advice I have for you on that. And it's not my advice really so much as is the advice of all the people I talk to that do tons and tons of hiring. The other piece of advice I'll give you, this is coming from me, but I didn't write this. If your playing is too busy, your calendar won't be. This ain't the classical world where everybody is going to want to hire you based on how many notes you can play in 3 seconds and how high up the neck you can go. I can play in 64th position. Nobody cares. They want to hear that mess. If you want to work as a violinist or cellist, somebody who plugs into a PA and plays music that people actually want to hear, the kind that you don't have to put on a tux and go to a place to see, okay? They want to hear songs that they know. They want to hear things that they like. And they want to be in tune. And they want you to not be a horse's rear end, okay? So those are the things that get you booked and get you gigs. Lance, what's going on, guys? We're actually just wrapping it up. Sorry you came in late, but the beauty of this is you can go back and watch, because as soon as I hang up, it's going to go live, and you can go, oh, I can go back to the beginning, and it's like I travel back in time. In fact, if you do go back and watch the beginning of this, you will be an hour younger than you were when you started, because that's how old I was when I started it. I was an hour younger than I am now, and you can go there with me. Wrinkles and all that, they all disappeared. Gray hair. I lost 1 gray hair by going back an hour, and you could too. I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Thank you.